It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Wilmington Sharks head baseball coach, Russell Burroughs. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into coaching baseball?
Yeah, I run a facility back home in Nashville Baseball Academy. I'm the head trainer there. Um, Work with clients of all ages, from four all the way up into pro ball. And working with them and seeing athletes progress and doing things with their body that they didn't know they were capable of doing. Seeing that transformation really puts a joy on my face. Seeing athletes succeed, from helping them from my side of it, it's more rewarding than anything I ever did as a player. So that aspect is really fun for me to just see somebody, always progress and reach into that untapped potential that they have. Playing baseball, I've played since the age of 4. I'm almost 35 now, so I've been in the game for 31 years. I grew up around coaches that really had no clue what they were doing. All the way from little league up into pro ball, I have a handful of coaches that I adored. The rest of them were very subpar. So, when I did get into pro ball, I was a relief pitcher, so I spent a lot of time in the bullpen. And as relief pitchers really don't come in until the sixth inning or later. So you have an hour and a half to do nothing. So it was a lot of simulated, managerial stuff in the bullpen. It was trying to figure out when should this guy go in? When should that guy go in? Should you pinch it? Should you hit and run? Should you still? So there was a lot of simulation stuff that I did in the bullpen just to take my mind off of being bored. And the whole aspect of, baseball as a chess match is really intriguing to me, always trying to be one step ahead of your opponent. I am very competitive. So if I can get somebody on a intellectual aspect as well as an athleticism aspect, that's game over for me. And that's just something that I've thoroughly enjoyed. And, hopefully I can continue to do this for years to come.
That's amazing. Can you talk about, of course, your collegiate time at Lipscomb and Bethel?
Yeah. So, out of high school, I was recruited to go to a few schools and ultimately ended up choosing Bethel College just because, the coaching staff I thought was a really good fit. It kind of goes back to that last question that you asked. He was one of the few coaches that I really connected with, and I saw him almost as kind of a father figure. So that's why I chose that school. I get down there, the team was great. He was great. It was not a good fit for me, location wise. So I ended up deciding to transfer out of Lipscomb or out of Bethel my first year. Ended up transferring to Lipscomb, which I made the jump from NAI to D1. I got to Lipscomb first year there. Our head coach gets fired, and they bring in another guy. So that's 3 coaches in 3 years for my college career. And Forehand came in at Lipscomb, and he was another guy that I absolutely adore and admire. So it was an interesting college career from a coaching side of things, and being a player, seeing 3 different coaches in 3 to 4 years. I get to Lipscomb, get on the whole D1 workouts, started having injuries. My first year there, I went through the fall and was lights out in the fall. Tore my labrum, have surgery in the winter, come back a little too early, pitching a game. We were playing against Kansas at the time, and ended up re-injuring my arm, tore my rotator cuff this time, and I'm having surgery again. So now it's 2 surgeries within 2 years, and it was it was an interesting college career for me. A lot of it I spent in the PT room, doing a lot of therapy, arm care work. So yeah, it is what it is, but it got me on the path that I'm at now. And if you could ask me, could I do it all over again? I'd say no, because I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for that.
That's amazing. What was your professional baseball experience like?
So it's a funny story because back in 2008, I was going into my junior year into college, and I just came off my second surgery. Doctors told me, it's not healing the way it's supposed to. It's not progressing how we want it to. They had major concerns that if I continued to pitch, I continued to throw, that, by the time I was 30, I wasn't, going to be able to lift my arm over my head. And I wasn't going to do, the day-to-day activities that a normal person would do. So the doctors would not release me to play. And I was kind of at that crossroad of like, what am I going to do? Like, this is my whole life. I can't do it anymore. So what do I do? And that was the point where I said, hey, I had to retire from college baseball. And I got into broadcasting, and, I helped Lipscomb start their very first sports broadcasting show. I did play-by-play and radio for the baseball team, went on the road with them just so I could still be a part of that, family. One summer came, this was after all this had happened, and it was in the summer, and one of my buddies back home in Nashville was like, hey, why don't you just come play, just adult league baseball, just kind of get back into it, have fun. We need an extra body. You don't have to do anything. And I told them, like, hey, my arm can't handle it. They said, just play the outfield, you'll be fine. So I go out there, play a game, ended up having a lot of fun, and refound the love that I once had for it. And, I actually did pretty well. And they invited me to play the whole season, and ended up doing that and did extremely well. And, my arm and body started feeling better, and the fall came, and I got this wild hair on me that said, hey, your career's not over yet. So I literally I flew down to Texas and went to a professional tryout, and I got signed right on the spot to a team out of Corpus Christi, Texas. And, I got signed as an outfield DH. And I was a pitcher in college. I was a left-handed pitcher, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe my pitching career is done, and now I can just kind of hit and stay in the outfield. So I go down there for spring training. Had a decent spring training. I also told them, hey, I'm a pitcher. I'm a two-way guy. If you need me to throw, I can do some stuff. Whatever it took for me to stay on the team, I was going to help them. So we're down there in spring training and throwing a bullpen, and next thing you know, I hear a pop, and my UCL goes. So labrum, rotator, now UCL. And this was the summer of 2008. I want to say. So I was pretty frustrated. It was 3 arm injuries in about 3 or 4 years, and I wasn't in a good place. So came home. They released me right away because they had no use for me. Came home, got into training, did some private baseball instructing. That's how I kind of started that whole path. And a year or two went by, and I started to miss the game, and I started to figure out, what's my next move in life. And at the time, I was raised by my mom and my grandma, and they came up to me and said, we know that you still love the game, and we're going to support you in any way possible. So if you want to have Tommy John surgery, you can. We will support you. We'll help you with your rehab. We'll help you with your surgery. We'll do whatever it takes for you to just try to live out your dream one last time. So in the fall of 2011, I had Tommy John, and that sent me on a path that, this, looking back, it's been a decade. It's been an incredible decade. I mean, going from, my grandfather dying 2 weeks after I had my surgery to my grandmother getting diagnosed with breast cancer a month after my surgery, me rehabbing while having to take care of her with her chemo and radiation treatments. It was all just this wild storm that I had no clue what I was in store for. And at the time I was 24, 25, and I rehabbed my tail off while trying to take care of the family and try to be there for emotional support. And a year after I had my TJ, I went down to Texas again for another open trial, and I just went on the bump and I started hitting 90 from the left-handed side, and I had some teams reach out to me, and I had one team sign me, and that was it. That was my foot in the door at the time. After my rehab, I was 26 when the season started, so I was a 26-year-old rookie. Got sent to Colorado. Then I got sent to Taos, New Mexico, and then up to Washington, and then up to New York, and then up in Canada. I mean, it was a wild ride from a person standpoint. It helped me grow up. It helped me realize that life isn't always about you, and you really can't predict what's going to happen in the future. It's something that you just have to let go of control and just kind of just say, hey, like, I'm here, and wherever the future takes me, I'm going to let it take me. So ended up spending 4 years in pro ball in the independent leagues, and then I was in international for a year. I got to see a lot of the country, got to see a lot of the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything, just from the connections that I made, the friendships that I made, the absolutely insane stories that I have. It's a wild ride, and I always knew that I kind of wanted to coach. So the longer that I could spend in pro ball, the better it was going to look for my resume. So once I hit 30, I was living up in Canada, and I kind of woke up on my 30th birthday, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm 30 and I'm playing minor league baseball for pennies. And I had that kind of freak out moment, that, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? And, I kind of went out and celebrated my 30th birthday and kind of let that go to the side. And after the season was over, I made a decision, do I want to keep trying to play, or do I want to try to get into coaching? And, at that time, I think for me personally, getting into coaching was that next stepping stone that I wanted to try to achieve. So I sent out my resume to 150 different organizations that fall, and I got three callbacks and over 150 resumes. One was up in Canada, one was up in New York, and the other one was in North Carolina, which was Edenton, North Carolina. And Edenton at the time was in the Coastal Plain League, and it's a top 3 league in the United States, and it was the closest to home that I had ever been since getting out of college. And so that was a very big draw to me. And they hired me as their pitching coach, and after a year being their PC, they brought me on as their head coach. And it's been there ever since, and now I'm in my 4th year as being a head coach.
That's so amazing. Of course, going back to your professional career, whenever you were getting injured a lot, what was the mindset like for you, knowing like, okay, can I do this? Like, because I know for players, sometimes it's like you want to pursue it, but then you're like, okay, my body can't take this anymore.
For me, it was, oh no, not again. It's just part of it. Some people their bodies can withstand different bumps and bruises, and other people, their bodies just can't handle it. And, unfortunately in college, my body wasn't able to handle the strenuous things that it was doing every day. It was a lot of time in the rehab center, a lot of time with my PT. It was just, the big thing for me was after every surgery, it was very mental. It was, is this going to happen again? What's going to happen next? Can my body take this? Doctors telling me that I'll never be able to throw again. Doctors telling me that I won't be able to lift my hand above my head at the age of 30. It took a mental toll on me, just everybody saying you can't do something. And I'm very stubborn, and, if someone says I can't do something, I say, watch me do it, and I will prove you wrong. So that kind of fueled my fire a little bit too, getting hurt and coming back, getting hurt and coming back, getting hurt and coming back. So it's a lot of trying to prove other people wrong, as well as trying to prove your body wrong, that your body is not what they say it is, if that makes sense. But it helps you mentally down the road. Like looking back at it now at my age, it's made me tougher going through all that stuff at that age.
What was it like being on the LSU baseball summer camp?
So yes, after college season was over, I had a buddy that said, "Hey, LSU is looking for some camp counselors. Why don't you come on down and just spend a couple weeks down there and work the camps and have some fun?" And I said, "Okay." It was like a little mini vacation for me. So it was an interesting time. They bring in kids from all over the country for these camps, and they bring counselors in from all over the country. It was a really good experience. It was to see how SEC programs run their camps, how loved they are by the little kids, and having these kids that are 7, 8, 9 years old walking into Alex Box Stadium at the time, the original one, and just looking at it and being completely enamored. Like, these guys win the national championship every few years. Like, there's the head coach, there's their players. Like, from a kid standpoint, it was kind of the mecca of college baseball, and I was just very honored to be a part of that, to help those kids like get to see what it's like to play baseball at the next level. I did that for 2 years, and it was one of the most fun times that I've had, coaching baseball from that aspect.
Can you talk about, of course, getting your first head coaching job at Edmonton?
Yeah, so I was a pitching coach in Edenton back in 2017, and my first coaching job ever was a pitching coach for Edenton. It's when I sent out my resumes to everybody under the sun, they all came back and they said, "You had playing experience, but you don't have coaching experience. You need to go coach travel ball, go coach high school, and then come back when you've got a coaching resume." And then from my perspective, it was, I played professional baseball for 4 years. I played D1 baseball. I'm a baseball trainer at an academy. I know my stuff. I don't need to go coach high school. I don't need to go coach travel ball. So when Edenton gave me the opportunity to be their pitching coach, I stepped into something really amazing. 3 months after I became the pitching coach, they went a different direction with their head coach, and I ended up taking over the head coaching role 3 months into my coaching career. I'm just going to be honest. I had no clue what I was doing. It was everything was going 100 million miles a minute, and I was literally learning as I went. Talk about being thrown to the fire. Like, I was literally thrown into the fire and said, "Here, figure it out yourself." So when that happened, we had let our recruiting coordinator go at the time too. So I was in charge of recruiting, and I had no clue what I was doing. So, first year head coach, having to recruit, field your own team. It was a tailspin, but again, you've got to learn by trial and error. And at the end of the day, no one's going to hold your hand on how to do things. You've got to learn from yourself, and you've got to create those nuances for you, and you've got to understand how you work and how you run things. So it was a learning experience, and I'm hoping now by year 4 that I think I have it down, pretty good. But every year I learn something new. When you stop learning is when you need to get out of what you're doing, because there's always something to learn. There's always something to do. We don't have the answers to everything. No matter how old we are, we're always trying to progress in knowledge.
Can you talk about, of course, creating the Nashville Baseball Academy and what that is?
Yeah, so I've been training there. I've been a trainer there for 13 years, going on 14 years. I'm their head baseball instructor, so it's a lot of creating continuity throughout all of our trainers, making sure that all of our trainers are all on the same page, that we're teaching the same things. That way, if a trainer has to miss a lesson or someone has to fill in, they kind of pick up where they left off, to where there's not 15 different, hitting techniques or pitching techniques. So there's a lot of keeping the trainers on the same page, as well as, training the clients. During the off season, when I go back there, I've got 50 to 60 clients a week. It's a full-time job. It's having to keep up with each individual client and remembering what we're working on a weekly basis. So sometimes it can get overwhelming, but as long as you can continue to create those relationships with those kids, it's so much easier to remember what they need to work on and what they're struggling with. I do everything from hitting, pitching, fielding, speed, and strength. I do all of that. It's very rewarding, especially when you have them call you and say, "Hey, guess what, Russ? I just hit a home run, my first home run ever." And you can hear and see the excitement on their faces. And, that right there that brings me more joy than I've ever had as an athlete myself. So it's very rewarding giving back and seeing these kids grow and develop into something that they never knew was possible.
What was it like for you to get the job with the Wilmington Sharks as the head baseball coach?
And it came as a surprise. I was actually at the hospital when the phone call came in. My mom was having some test run and stuff like that, and I got a call from an area code I really didn't know, and I answered it, stepped outside, answered, and at the time it was our old GM Carson, and we talked for a little bit, and next thing you know, the owners get on the phone, and we're having a 45-minute interview while I'm standing in a hospital lobby. It was very exciting, being in the CPL for the previous 3 years with Edenton. We would always come down to Wilmington, and every time that we came over the bridge, there was the city of Wilmington, right on the river, and it's got that that cool city vibe to it. It's every time we went, there's 15 to 3,000 fans there at every game, and it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And being hired by Carson and, the ownership was really exciting. It was the first time that someone had ever called me and said, "Hey, like, we want you as our head coach." Instead of me sending my resumes out, it was them calling me. So, that was a good feeling that, what I had done in my past, the hard work was actually paying off because other people are noticing what's going on. And, it was a very surreal feeling, and I'm very grateful for them for hiring me back in September of 2019, and unfortunately COVID hit last year in 2020, so I came down here for about 2 weeks and we got canceled. So this is technically my first year on the field with Wilmington, and it's been absolutely amazing. I couldn't ask for anything better. We've got a new front office, and our new GM right now is absolutely fantastic. Love him to death. Love the city. Love the fans. We got a really good support system here in Wilmington, and I couldn't be happier right now. It is definitely, we've got some good things going on down here.
Of course, with it being your first year, and of course with COVID having an impact, how do you plan to, of course, rebuild the Wilmington team to make it your team?
So, when I took over as head coach, there was some guys that were already on the roster from the old regime, from their old coaching staff, and I got a hold of the roster, and it really didn't fit kind of the philosophy that I have for coaching. So it was literally having to scrap everything and start over brand new. Just bringing in the type of guys that I wanted to bring in, bringing guys with experience, bringing guys in that know how to handle wood bats and not aluminum bats. From a hitting side of things, we want to have guys that have been there before, that have played summer ball before, that know what it's like to play 6 games a week, being on buses every day, being mentally tough. And from a hitting side, it's all about consistency. So we need to see what you've done previously before we can bring you on now. From a pitching side of things, it's a little different because, you're throwing a baseball. And I know that sounds, it is what it is, but, you throw a baseball, if you can hit your spots and, throw 3 pitches for strikes and have good movement, like you're going to be successful, whether it's aluminum or wood. So, from a pitching side of things, we look for guys that, they're experienced, their walks are down, guys that can pound the zone, guys that understand what they are and they don't try to be more than who they are. I'm a big guy from a pitching side of things, 4 pitches or less per batter. If you can go 4 pitches or less per batter, like you're going to have success. And it's understanding when you recruit pitchers, they have to know who they are. If they're not a strikeout guy and they're a ground ball guy, then that's great for the team because you know what you're going to get every time. It's when you get those wild cards that really don't know who they are as a pitcher, that's when you can run into a little bit of problems. So it's finding guys that are intelligent on the field, guys that know who they are on the field, and guys that have maturity about themselves on and off the field.
Of course, what is the recruitment process like for Wilmington Sharks as they are an independent baseball?
So we started recruiting, as soon as the season's over. Every year the recruiting process starts earlier and earlier. Sometimes we'll start recruiting when the tail end of the other season's finishing up, and we kind of just go right into the recruiting aspect of it. So for me, I'll take 2 weeks off after the season just to kind of get away from baseball, decompress, and then I will get a notebook and I will get on a computer for hours on hours every day and literally compile about 1,000 names and just mix and match on who we think is a good fit for us and who we think is not a good fit for us. And it's just going through all the other leagues. It's going through, all the stats, everything. And we're just trying to figure out which guys best match our system. There are some schools that we do recruit from just because I trust them wholeheartedly. Every year that they've sent me guys, they've been guys. So there's a few schools where I just say, hey, give me who you think the best fit for us is. No questions asked. There's like 2 or 3 schools that I do that for, but for the most part, everything else is just generated by looking up numbers, looking up stats, trying to figure out how they match with us and what our system is.
Of course, with UNC Wilmington being so close to y'all, do you look at schools like UNC Wilmington a lot?
Yeah, it's really good to have that pipeline connection with the local school, especially UNCW. I mean, it's 5 minutes away from us, so we want to stay in good standards with them. So every year we'll get a couple guys from them, and if we can take care of their players, they're going to take care of us with sending us talent. So it's really nice to be able to recruit within the area. And it's good for fan base too, when they can root for local hometown guys. That's going to drive revenue up as well, and that's going to put fans in the stands and rooting for those guys. So it has its perks. Also, it helps with the living situation. We don't have to worry about host families as much. I know that's always a big thing when it comes to this sort of baseball. It's guys living with host families, trying to figure out how we're going to house all these guys. And if we can get 3 or 4 guys that are over at UNCW or have their own place, like that's so much easier from us from a housing standpoint.
Of course, what is a typical game day like, and what do you prepare for as a head coach on game day?
So, our games are at 7:00 most nights except for Sunday, but I can take you through a typical 7:00 game. I usually get to the field around 2:00 on home days, 2:00. We'll have our early work at 3:00. That's where our pitchers stretch out, get their long toss in, get their flat ground work in, get their mechanical work in. Whatever the pitchers need to do, they're doing that from 3 to 4:00. Hitters, if they need to get early work in, if they need to do stuff in the cages off the tee, they need ground balls, they need pop-ups, whatever they need to work on, that's kind of our designated practice time is from 3 to 4. And then we go right into BP at 4 o'clock, and we take BP from 4 to 5. And then the away team takes BP from 5 to 6. So when we get done at 5 o'clock, our guys have an hour and a half to, rest, recover. If they want to get food, whatever they need to do, they've got an hour and a half block to do it. They're usually ready to go out on the field by 6:30, and we get things ready to go for the game at 7. And we get done at 10:30, and I'm usually at the field until about midnight. So it's a 10-hour process for me on home games. It's the running joke here is I love away games because there's less to do. You just get on a bus, drive a couple hours, get off the bus, go right to BP, get ready, play a game, get back on a bus and go home. There's a lot more that goes into home games. So anytime we get an away game, it's kind of just kind of a decompressor for me where you don't really have to worry about a lot. But yeah, it's a long day on game days. It's I'm there for 10 hours, and it is what it is. I would rather be out there than be at a desk.
Who are some of the teams that you play in your league?
So we've got a 15-team league in the CPL. We range from Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. The Savannah Bananas are in our league. Macon Bacon is in our league. Morehead City Marlins, Florence Red Wolves, Wilson Tobbs, Holly Springs Salamanders, Peninsula Pilots. Those are some of the teams that we play. I mean, there's a lot more on the western side of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, but kind of where we're at right now, it's Morehead City, it's Florence, it's Holly Springs, it's Wilson. It's staying within that I guess you want to call it a COVID pod, because that's what when the schedule came out, it was back in the fall and COVID was still pretty rampant. So they wanted to try to condense the travel this year. So we're staying mainly in that North Carolina, South Carolina region where we don't travel too far this year.
Of course, what is it like going to road games, like, for example, with Holly Springs Salamanders and, of course, with Savannah Bananas, as they have a very popular atmosphere?
It's the same as any other team that we play. When it's 7 o'clock and the lights come on and you step between those lines, it's game time. You've got to clear the noise, you've got to clear the distractions, and at the end of the day, it's you in baseball. Nothing else matters. Any good athlete can block out the fans. They can block out the noise. They can block out the distractions. And that's what separates good athletes from great athletes. If you can block out everything and get into your zone, then nothing's going to distract you. But it's when you start letting those distractions creep in is when you start kind of having that, oh my God, what's going on? Moment. And it's you can see the players that can handle it, and you can see the players that can't handle it, and it all goes back to mental toughness. I'm a big believer about mental toughness, and being mentally tough on and off the field so you can have success, whether it's in baseball or it's in your life. It's everything starts here with us, and as athletes, you've got to have this down if you want to get anywhere in this sport.
What are some game day traditions that you have implemented for Wilmington Sharks?
For me, I need to go to the gym every morning before I go. I need to run. I feel like if I don't run, then there's just going to be just more weight on me mentally and physically. It kind of just helps me clear my mind. It kind of just helps me just get out for a minute and just focus on just exerting energy. So the gym is a big part for me. Eating, of course, sometimes we forget that we need to replenish our body and take care of ourselves. So, I make sure that I eat the same stuff every single day at the same time. That way I'm on a regimented schedule. That way there's no forgetfulness. It's going over the lineup every morning. It's writing out the lineup every morning. It's sending out the lineup every morning. It's the little things. I wouldn't necessarily call it traditions. It's just trying to create consistency. And the more consistent you are, the less you have to think about it, which creates less stress for you in the long run.
Of course, for my listeners looking to go to a Wilmington Sharks game, what is the game day atmosphere like?
Oh, it's fantastic, especially on Thursdays. It's Thirsty Thursdays, dollar beer night. They can get a little wild down there in the beer garden. We're averaging, anywhere from a good night, 2,000 to 3,000 fans. And, you get that feel of, it's big time baseball. It's kids wanting foul balls every 5 seconds. You can hear people yelling and chirping at the players on the field and in the bullpens. It's an amazing atmosphere, and it's a really good group of fans. They know their baseball, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about Wilmington is that the fans know the game inside and out. Your bigger cities that you go to, people just go there for the atmosphere. People just go there because it's a cool thing to do. But the people that come to our games, they enjoy the game, and the game comes first to them, and then the atmosphere is second to them. So it's very exciting. It's a good time right on the water, so you're always going to get some sort of breeze during the night games. I absolutely love being here, and I wouldn't trade it for the world right now.
What is a meet and greet like for fans that want to meet players and even you as a coach?
So, usually it happens after games. As soon as the game's over, we'll open up the third base side dugout fence, and if kids want to run the bases, they can run the bases. If kids want to get autographs, they can get autographs. If they want to get photos, they can get photos. We're really fan friendly in terms of that, because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here. Fans are what run our types of organizations, because they pay to see us play. And if it wasn't for them, and if it wasn't for them having that fan experience, we wouldn't be here. So we want to be as open and as receptive as possible for them. We're very involved in the community. That was one of the big things that I advocate for, is every player needs to do 2 to 4 community service events every year, just to be personable with these people in the city of Wilmington. That way they can create a connection. And if you create a connection, they're going to come watch you. And when they come watch you, they're going to create experiences with their family that's going to last for a lifetime. So we try to go above and beyond, and whatever the fans want, whatever the kids want, we make sure that they're taken care of, because at the end of the day, this is a kid's game, and we're adults, and we're getting to live out what kids are growing up doing. And if we can put a smile on their face and kind of encourage them to get to where we are, as an organization, we've done our job.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give upcoming coaches looking to get into independent baseball?
So, it's a grind first off. A lot of long hours. It's really, it's hard to have a social life during the season. You're on a field for 10 hours. You're getting back off buses at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning, and getting back up in 5 to 6 hours and doing it all over again. It's a grind, but if you love this game, if you love coaching, if you love changing people's lives off the field and on the field, then, this is definitely the position you need to be in. When I took over coaching, back in 17, 18, I didn't realize that it was more off the field growing from a coaching standpoint. I thought it was just about winning games and putting a product on the field. It's so much more than that. It's helping these guys become adults. It's helping these guys learn things that they may have not learned growing up. It's being a role model to them. It's helping them through the good times and the bad times. It's being an advisor. It's being somebody that they can talk to when stuff goes wrong. They're hundreds of miles away from their families, and sometimes you're the only person that they can trust because you're the only adult on the team. So there's a lot of off the field things too. But if you're looking to make a difference in somebody's life, if you're looking to, stay involved in the game that you love, if you're looking for long hours, if you're looking for long bus rides, I mean, coaching is right up your alley. But like I said earlier, this has been an amazing ride. I wouldn't trade this for the world. I would rather be on a bus for 8 hours with 40 stinky players than being at a desk from 8 to 5. My advice would be get in any way you can. Just get your foot in the door. Because once your foot is in that door is going to continuously open wider. You just need an inch. Get in that inch, it can turn into a mile. And it's all about what you do when you get your opportunity. Like, make them want you. Do whatever you can so they don't forget who you are or what you're about. And always be kind to everyone you encounter, whether it's the front office, the stadium crew, the janitors, because you never know where they're going to be in 5 to 10 years. You never know if they're going to get that front office job, and then here they come calling you saying, "Hey, come work for us because you said hi to me 4 years ago when no one would talk to me." So it's taking that opportunity that you get and literally making whatever you can out of it, and just not saying no, and don't take no for an answer.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Wilmington Sharks at?
So you can find the Wilmington Sharks on Instagram, Twitter, I think Facebook too. I'm on Twitter, just at Russ Burroughs. I don't have the other social media stuff, but sometimes we can get lost in the other social medias, like the Instagrams. Next thing you know, you're scrolling 30 minutes later. It can be a trap, so I try to clear the noise. I got rid of all that about 7-8 months ago, and I've just tried to focus on living in the present and being in the moment. So, I just have Twitter and LinkedIn. It's at Russ Burroughs, I think, on both of them, but I'm not a big social media person.
Thank you again, Coach Russell Burroughs, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Wilmington Sharks Baseball.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Russell, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.